Well, hello all. We see you all are starting to come into the room, virtual room being what it is, but we're excited to have you. We'll give a few more minutes, I guess, or a few more seconds for people to start. Suzanne, do you know how many are supposed to be joining us today?
Yes, we should have about 105.
Awesome.
We're almost there.
Good job. Well, it's a pleasure to have you all join us this afternoon. It is a beautiful afternoon here in Lubbock, Texas. You could be anywhere else, but you are here, and we are absolutely thrilled that you are a part of this experience called the New Faculty Orientation, hosted by our TLPDC, one of the many acronyms you will come to learn at Texas Tech University. We have some of the most amazing people here at Tech. Let me take a second to introduce myself. You can see my name on the slide, but I sure want to make sure that you know my name and my face. You'll certainly know my laugh after a while. I'm Dr. Carol Sumner, Vice President for the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the Chief Diversity Officer here at Texas Tech. And they have provided me with the upfront spot to start this experience for you all today. I've had half a cup of coffee. That's probably a quarter more than I needed to be able to be excited about these opportunities to greet you. I will share with you now that I will have to cut my time short with us this afternoon because we have a town hall for staff this afternoon, and we want to make sure that as they have questions and are returning to campus, that we are able to be a part of that community that supports them. But let me start off by saying we are incredibly grateful to have this opportunity. We know it is not our traditional form, but it lets us do a few unique things. You never have to worry about Texas Tech being a place that does not work to find an answer, because that is truly what we're committed to. And so while we cannot meet in person, these are opportunities that afford us a chance to meet and talk to you about this place that you've chosen to call your academic and, for a greater sense, Lubbock, your new home. And we could not be more grateful that this is a chance for us to kind of share with you the resources that are available, to make sure that you know that the people on campus are committed to this. But I started off through the frame of DE&I because I think that it's one of the opportunities for us to look at culture. And as you've entered into this profession, whether this is something that is new to you and you are coming out of a postdoc program, or whether you're a new faculty member that is coming in from another institution, or whether you're a person that has been well experienced in another career and have chosen this distinguished career to teach and educate, we recognize the importance of creating a culture that says that all who are here and those who aspire to be a part of this campus community are welcome. Not in part and not in whole. We hope that we don't ask individuals to compromise who they are. And in doing so, as faculty members, you all are the faces of what it means to be a scholar for so many students. And so we want you to know that we're here to support you in your path to pursue whatever things you have as a research interest or a mentoring interest. And so through the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, or through the Office of Institutional Diversity, which is probably the office that you will have more interaction with, particularly faculty and staff needs. We work with faculty. We work specifically with the TLPDC, as they have a number of programs that are available for faculty members on development. They do chair training and orientation classes. They work with faculty members through the Faculty Fellows Program. We host a number of speaker series and have worked together to bring Beverly Daniel Tatum and several other scholars here to Texas Tech University because we're interested in hearing the ideas that go across the spectrum and in recognizing that the academy can be a place unlike any other. We know that you may have experiences where you are looking for a way to be filled, as you fill so many others through your experiences. But we're in a new era, and we recognize that in the course of doing that, there may be some things that you might encounter. And so we're looking to work with faculty on ways that we can help navigate some of the challenges. As I was talking with someone the other day, this is certainly, we live in a COVID era. We are in a post-George Floyd's death era. And so there are different conversations your students are going to be asking to have. Your peers are going to be looking to have different conversations. And certainly as you all are finding your own footing in the way that you address some of the conversations that may be around you or you may find yourself being a part of, we hope that collectively we can do better together. But your students are going to be in a new space, and it's been a summer and a fall unlike any other, and so we're here to be a support. On the division side, we certainly have a number of programs and resources, and so as you're thinking about how can I support my students, the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has about 11 or 12 programs that range from those that work in the community with children in K through 8. And so understanding that children of color and children from underrepresented backgrounds that are students now at the academy may have come through experiences that have required them to be quiet, to not speak, and to not feel as though they're a full member of that community. We don't want that to be their experience. And so we know that as faculty members, you're committed to teaching and learning and excellence in inclusive ways. So we're here to be that support through our programs and in supporting you. We recognize that regardless of where you come from, and no matter what your discipline is, there are so many things that are available to you at Tech. And so we've got colleagues that are here on this Zoom meeting that are going to help you better understand what it means to work with the student population. We have an incredible student affairs, an entire team that's committed to helping students, and they've worked through some really challenging topics over the course of the summer. But we know that they're here to be a support, and you have the dean of the graduate school who's on and being able to understand what it means to work in a scholarly manner. And we work with the vice president for research and innovation in trying to identify programs that help underrepresented and minoritized individuals find their way in fields of studies that have not traditionally been for those who are out there. So let me check my clock. We have a few minutes, but I want you to know that regardless, we're here. Now, the last thing I'll share with you is this. I often talk about my children, and now we have a grandchild, and he's incredibly brilliant. And sometimes I've had him on meetings with me. My 3 children, 2 of whom are in non-traditional fields, particularly for young people who are from underrepresented backgrounds. One who is an architect, and that would be our daughter. She is working towards finishing her licensing in that field. She has called at times in tears because of some of the experiences she's had as she's navigated an academy that sometimes does not feel like it's a place for her. And yet what we've shared with her is that you persist because you can. But we want faculty members to know that sometimes students may not express their fears to you. They're experiencing it to others, but there is a way that you can be a support. And likewise, we have a younger son who is pursuing his PhD, and let me make sure I get it right, high energy physics. He's in his 3rd year going into his research. He might even be going into his 4th, but his parents, we kind of lose track. I'm surprised I can remember the major. But he's been often told, you don't look like a physicist. We work to counter those kinds of narratives. We work to counter those narratives around who you are as faculty members and as members of this community. And we are an incredible community that is a family. So my final words to you are this: be a faculty member that encourages students to find a path. Be faculty members that recognize the students love seeing you in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Masks can sometimes hide the smiles that we carry, so our words and our representations mean even more. And if at any time you need help or support, or you're finding that you're challenged, we are here to be that voice for you. Now, you're going to see some slides in the presentation, and this is the live nature of where we are, and then I'm turning it over to Vice Provost Duran and Dean Matt Gregory. But I want you to know it's a living, breathing experience, this thing called DEI. And we just had this conversation this morning because it's too late to change some of the slides. But we had individuals that asked us to speak to the way that we were naming demographic groups in our data. We also had faculty to speak to us and say, this is a concern that they call us this. And we took it to our university administration and were able to make the changes. So this is living, breathing. This is what we do every day. We are incredibly passionate about our work, but we want to make it something that's open and welcoming to all. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues who are, again, incredible people. You all have no idea the long hours they put in trying to make sure that our students have a safe and welcoming environment that also understands what accountability looks like. So I'm going to turn it over to, again, Vice Provost Dr. Kathy Duran, who is faculty in our Rawls College of Business, and to Dr. Matt Gregory, who is our Dean of Students. We are so grateful that you're here, and we will move forward with the presentation. Have a great time, y'all. It's a wonderful day to do great things. Off to them.
Hi, everyone. I'm waiting. I'm Kathy Duran. I'm waiting to see if our slides will catch up with our presentation. So I don't know, Matt or Ken, do you have control over the slides? There we go. Okay, thank you. So I'm the Vice Provost for Student Affairs, as Dr. Sunriver indicated, and Matt Gregory is our Dean of Students and our Associate Vice Provost of Student Affairs. And between us, we have a lot of different kinds of experiences. Both of us have actually had several careers before we ended up where we are now. For example, my first couple of degrees were in microbiology, and I worked as a research lab tech at a health sciences center, and then I got an MBA, and then I moved to Japan, and then I did a bunch of stuff, and then ended up with a PhD in strategic management, and spent several years in academic administration at the Rawls College. I still teach there at the Rawls College. I'm very fortunate to teach a capstone senior undergraduate class in strategy. And one of the interesting things is that I also teach a freshman or first year success seminar, our Writer Ready course. And so in the fall semester, I'm teaching first year students and graduating seniors. And so every year I get reminded about the transformative nature of the higher education experience, because I can see it before my very eyes. And it's just wonderful to have that experience. Matt, if you want to go to the next slide, I think you've got control. Thank you. So we're here to talk about our undergraduate students. It is, you know, I don't really like to make sweeping generalizations about a particular generation just because of the age group that they're in. However, there has been a lot of research about Gen Z and the differences between, you know, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z, and how they learn and interact with each other and the world. And so I thought it would be a good idea to at least take a look at some of these characteristics. I've used sources. There was a very good report that came out in the Chronicle of Higher Education about Gen Z, and some other sources and surveys. One thing I wanted to point out was that, of course, all of our undergraduate students are not in Gen Z, okay, born after 1995. However, when I looked it up this morning, 92% of our undergraduates are in Gen Z, okay? That is a lot. So the rest of them are mostly millennials with a few Gen X and a few baby boomers mixed in there. The other interesting point is that 26% of our graduate students are Gen Z. So that was interesting. I just gave a presentation to our new TAs for the university, and I was talking about Gen Z, and I said, I apologize in advance that I am talking about you to you. So, but it is still interesting, because I do think that the fact that they are digital natives, which means they have just been immersed in digital online social media, that world completely from day one. Okay. And so Matt, could you go back again a little bit? Okay, thanks. And actually, that is different. You know, I have a son who's a millennial, and he, you know, he was in junior high or high school when things started to become available, and Facebook, and you know, he got his own phone and computer and all that stuff. But it was a lot different when you're, you know, already 16 years old, than when you're born into this world. And so for somebody like me, sometimes I make distinctions between the online world and the what I consider to be the other world, the realistic world. But I do think that in general, they're not making those distinctions. It's their world. Okay. So it's interesting though that since they're immersed in social media, it has a couple of things about that, is that they there's some positives. You know, they're very in tune with the world. They know what's happening, world events. They know what causes they believe in. You know, they really can see what's happening in the world. And they have an innate sense of marketing, okay, because they are marketing their stories. They're not even just curating their stories, but they're creating their stories, and it's kind of an innate marketing skill. So those are some positives, but there are some negatives that go along with that, and that is because of this creation of their stories and what they want out there on social media, sometimes we see issues with self-worth and how they're feeling about themselves because of other things that are in social media. I mean, or the realities of their life that are not always just what has been curated or created for the story. And so we know that privately, a lot of students still have a lot of anxiety and self-esteem issues, even though they are masters and very sophisticated at telling the story. Now, one thing about the stories and what they put out there is that they are very image centered, not text centered at all. And so video messaging has become really the way that they communicate. And actually, it's been interesting since March, since we in Student Affairs have put all of our student services online, whereas most of them were not, in a very short period of time. We have discovered that video, webinar and video communication has been extremely popular, and we have gotten really, really good responses with that. I do want to say just one other thing on this slide about, you know, the 24 demand access. I mean, that, you know, they're very efficient with their information gathering. They may not be very good at determining whether that information is accurate or credible, but they amass great quantities of information very quickly. And their travel experiences have been pretty extensive. But I think even more than that, their open-mindedness and sort of commitment to diversity it's not even really a commitment. I mean, they just live it. It's an expectation. They have grown up in increasingly diversified classrooms, and so I think that leads to their tolerance and open-mindedness. Okay, Matt, you can move to the next one now. Unless that was just a signal that I was becoming too long-winded. So here's another little example of, you know, for a long time, everybody was talking about millennials. They do this, they do this, they do this. But really and truly, that's not, you know, I mean, probably our faculty are millennial right now. There may even be some Gen Z in the faculty. But the Gen Z, because of the way that they have grown up and the life and world events that have happened while they were growing up, a lot of this is different from how a millennial might think about things. For example, they're very future focused. They are very interested in careers and advancement. They're very practical and realistic. Optimism. They tend not to be optimists, again, probably because of the things that they have observed and lived through. All of them lived through the Great Recession and all kinds of other really traumatizing world events. I already mentioned their media consumption is at the highest level. They communicate and think through images more than anything. They're calling them tech innate rather than just savvy. using 5 screens at once is not anything unusual for them. And I do want to emphasize again that they are a quite creative group and really do like to collaborate with each other. So we go to the next one, Matt. So one thing's about Gen Z that I think, yes, right here, thank you, is that everybody used to talk about millennials' attention span and how short it was. Well, the Gen Z has got that beat. So if the research that's been done, a natural attention span of about 8 seconds. Well, of course, that is not going to be conducive to being in a classroom or listening to a lecture or really pretty much doing anything. And so there's a lot of effort that has to be put into the classroom. Of course, we are doing things so differently anyway over these last few months that I think all of us, even those who were very accustomed to only doing face-to-face, small, interactive classes, have learned to replicate some of those things in a virtual world, which is a good thing, because engagement is just so important, partly because of the short attention span, engagement and activities. Entrepreneurial, I think I read one statistic that said in a survey 72% of all Gen Z, when asked, wanted to start their own business. And so they're really self-starting, they're determined, and they really, wanting to own your own business is they want to be independent. Now, of course, since the pandemic, small business owners have had a really, really tough time. And so I believe that probably these students that have these dreams are anxious about this. I mentioned before that they're pragmatic and very practical oriented. They want to get things done. They feel responsibility for the state of the world and the things that they care about. They are loyal, especially to their friend groups or whoever they're interacting with. They're compassionate. It seems like compassion runs high with this group of students. Maybe, I don't know what the reason is, but it could be because of their firsthand and very detailed knowledge of all the things that are going on in the world that need compassion. Open-minded, I've talked about that. Embracing diversity. Some say that they're a bit cynical, but really and truly, I see more of a realist view more than anything. One thing I wanted to mention about being cautious and private, they are, with all the social media exposure, it sort of seems like a conundrum that students who would be so open on social media and share so much in social media that they would not be that private or worry about confidentiality. But in reality, because of that creation and curation of what they do put on social media, they're projecting a particular story and image, and I think that most of the conversations I've had with the first year students in the last couple of years is they are very much not wanting to share things about themselves to other people that they don't know well. And so that's something that, it's a good practice anyway in the classroom to not be talking about things like that in front of classes, but they will come to you and they will disclose things, and you will need to, be compassionate yourself and try to get them referrals to the resources in the university. But you need to be very careful with that, and it's probably something that they would need to come up with. So I've just noticed that they're more anxious, I think, about what people think of them. And maybe it has to do with their carefully curated images that they've put out there, but at the same time, like I said, their self-esteem sometimes suffers. I do believe, though, that it is quite defining that they want to make a difference, either small or large. Can we go to the next one? And in doing this, there was a survey in the higher ed report that I read that talked about these are the top issues that Gen Z care about. They do want to change big things in the world, and Gender equality is right up there, gun violence and mass shootings. Of course, they lived through watching Sandy Hook and things like that. Racial justice inequality, and this is from a report about a year and a half ago. And so at this point, I believe that that one probably has grown in their priority list. The health of the environment and what to do about student debt and the cost of higher education. But they do feel a great sense of responsibility to create change in the world. Matt? Do you want to go to the next slide, Matt, please? I think it's one before that. Yes, thank you. So this slide right here is kind of, you know, it's what we're doing right now anyway. You know, blend of face-to-face digital and online learning. I think we're doing much more of a blend than we used to do that. So I believe that the variety is good and they're comfortable going back and forth. They do want that human connection, which of course we're all learning to do in a virtual way. It's interesting, they enjoy both independent and collaborative work, but I will tell you that sometimes I think it's hard for this group of students, from my experience, to know the difference between when it should be independent and when it should be collaborative. I don't think that they understand that the default is individual work, and that those are things that I think faculty and instructors of record need to be extremely clear about for every single assignment. This is something you do on your own. This is something that you can discuss, but you have to turn in your own work. This is something that you may not discuss. This is something that you do together as a group, etc. I think that's important. Applying concepts, again, this is taking the knowledge that they're learning and doing something with it. They really want to do something with it. And they're interested in communication, how to solve problems, and learning, you know, honing their entrepreneurial skills. Matt, next, thank you. And I'm going to do this last slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gregory. These are just some things that actually are really good pedagogy anyway, regardless of whether it's Gen Z or whoever the students are. But project-based learning goes well with their entrepreneurial spirit, their pragmatic nature, and also wanting to learn how to do something with what the discipline they're learning. Discussions is kind of interesting. I've had last couple of years, it was like pulling teeth to have a discussion with my small first year seminar group, and I really struggled to figure out the best way to do this, and my TA actually came to the rescue. And there are a lot of interactive learning games and apps out there that you can kind of put into use as a beginning, as a, you know, whatever. And these, from my experience, this group of students, especially our younger students, first year and sophomore students, are very, this is a very good engagement tool with them. I've mentioned practical and relevant. They want marketable skills. I think the other thing I want to point out here is giving opportunities to create and reflect. A lot of times we have so much content to cover in our classes. We are really trying to get through the material and make sure that our students have been exposed to and are learning a large quantity of material, and we need it. And actually, that's one of the things that our students struggle with the most, is that even when they're good students from high school, the pace and quantity of learning when they get to the university is much more than they've dealt with, and it's been difficult. And so that usually, you know, it's an awakening essentially to come to the university and figure out that things move a lot faster and you have to learn a lot more. But I think you still need to create that space for them to be creative and reflect about things. So, all right, those are just a few characteristics and ideas about what 92% of our students belong to this particular generation. Matt, I want to turn it over to you to finish the presentation.
Sure, thank you. So a little bit more on this particular audience of students that we're going to be working with so closely. Things that motivate them, right? Not wanting to let others down, advocating for something they believe in, finding a solution, very intrinsic things. And then if you look over the other column, unmotivated by things that others would maybe be a little bit more extrinsically motivated for. So this particular crop of students, it has that drive internally to be able to be successful. Don't want to advance too much here. There we go. So on the looking at the demographics of the group that we're working with, our students, and I think you can see very quickly some of the numbers, but overall, if you look at the student population here at Texas Tech, we have a very diverse student body. We have high numbers, and just a few years ago was able to get our Hispanic Serving Institution designation. So our numbers of Hispanic students are a good percentage of our students here at Texas Tech. Our Black and African American students are a little under 7%, but this gives you an idea of the diversity of the students that we will be working with and seeing here at Texas Tech. And it is quite a diverse student body. Another piece of who they are is where they come from. So I think if you look at this particular chart and you look in that 200, 300, 400 mile range, or actually 3, 4, and 5, 300, 400, 500 miles away from Lubbock, we're talking about the DFW area, Austin, San Antonio, maybe in southern Colorado, maybe in New Mexico, where students are coming from. So yes, we do have 20% of students coming within a 100-mile radius of Lubbock, but we have a lot of students that we pull from across the state of Texas and outside the state of Texas, but many are coming from larger metropolitan areas in Texas. So a little bit about support sources that are available for your students, but also to support you as instructors and faculty. The Explore program in university advising, it helps students who may have an idea where their end goal is and what they want to potentially major in, but just not really for sure the path of how to get there. They can meet with the staff in university advising, help to outline in their program of study that path of what that looks like to be able to get them ultimately where they want to go. The SOAR, which is focused on supplemental instruction and making sure that students have the skills they need to have academically to be successful in the class. Our Student Rights and Resolution Office, which will actually be speaking after me, and I think they changed the name, so I'll let Abigail correct that. Student Counseling Center, Student Legal Services. My office, the Office of Dean of Students, we help students in crisis or of concern, students who don't really know where else to go but need some help. Our Student Disability Services, which we'll also be visiting with you today. And then our Office of Student Conduct, which is our office that handles academic integrity, academic misconduct issues, student behavioral, student conduct issues, and is the place where our students typically don't want to go. So a few more offices and things that help to engage our students is the TRUE office. And that one is important, and it's because it's directly linked to our university strategic plan in terms of undergraduate research and study away, which is opportunities that are faculty led to study under a faculty member, not necessarily study abroad. So some of these opportunities could be within the United States. The other is service learning, where volunteerism and community service is connected directly with what is being learned in the class. So TRUE does a lot of very good ways to connect students and engage them in their academic study. We have over 500 student organizations, 40 fraternities and sororities, so opportunities to get involved. Our Student Government Association, being a part of student media like the Daily Toreador, University Career Service, and helping to plan out their plan for after graduation and after college. And then Student Volunteer Operators in CCL, which we've partnered more recently with our Volunteer Center of Lubbock and connecting students directly with volunteer opportunities in the Lubbock community. Real quick, Alexander Aston, he's a researcher that worked out of UCLA and for years and years led the freshman center there at UCLA and did research on the incoming freshman class. Time and time again, he was able to demonstrate a solid connection between the level of involvement and engagement a student has with outside of the classroom extracurricular activities and a positive correlation with academic success, high GPA, retention, and desire to look back and give back to their university because they had a favorable undergraduate experience. And we have our resources here for you. I'm not going to read those, but I'm sure this will be available to you if you would like to dive in and learn more about Gen Z or about our college students who will be assisting. So with that, I think I am passing it along to our care coordinator in the Title IX office, Ms. Abigail Wesson.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience as we navigate this relatively new technology for all of us. So my name is Abigail Wesson. I am a care coordinator with the Office for Student Civil Rights and Sexual Misconduct. We have recently changed our name really to provide clarity of what types of incidents we support students with and what options we provide students and employees as well. So as much as I wish we were able to be together in person, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to meet with all of you to discuss what our office does, how we are able to provide support to students, and discuss the obligation that all of you have as university employees to notify our office if you witness or are made aware of an incident of sexual misconduct. I know this topic can be a little intimidating, but know that this is just a brief overview, and there will be additional trainings with more detail that are required by HR that will give you full confidence about when you need to file a report and how to file a report. All right, so many of you have probably heard of Title IX as the federal regulation that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex within any educational program or activity. In addition to specifically Title IX related incidents, we assist all Texas Tech students and employees who are involved in any type of discrimination, harassment, or sexual misconduct. So I want to give you just a quick rundown of our office's staff and about each person's role. So the University Title IX coordinator is Dr. Kimberly Simone. She is more than fine with you just calling her Kim. She's an amazing individual to have leading our office. With a doctorate in marriage and family therapy, her background provides a valuable perspective on the best policies and procedures to implement at the institution to best assist students. Our case manager, Meredith, might be one of the most wonderful people I know. I'm sure you all will have the opportunity to meet her soon. She spent her entire career helping students and cares deeply about each person she interacts with. When a report is filed or when someone contacts our office, she's the first person to reach out to them and conducts all of those initial intake meetings with students. I know the term investigator can be a little intimidating, but Glenn, Megan, and Tyler are very far from intimidating. If students do choose to move forward with an investigation and they would like the university to intervene, they facilitate the investigation as well as the resolution process. If you ever physically come to our office, you will meet the most precious administrative assistant, Gloria. And of course, at Texas Tech, my role stands for an acronym. It stands for Campus Advocacy, Response, and Education Coordinator. A little over a year ago, the president of the university decided to add this role really specifically to make sure that students had immediate access to resources and to have someone else to walk through this process with them and check in on them throughout the semester to see if their needs may change. As I skip through, sorry about that. There we are. So sorry. All right. So I know that you all have heard me say the term support or supportive measures and resources, but what exactly does that mean? So any student we meet with, regardless if they choose to move forward with any type of investigation, we create an individualized support plan for that student. This is not at all an exhaustive list of how we can support students as we're continuously adding to it, but these are some of the common supportive measures that we can provide students. So we can refer students to the various counseling services we have on campus. We can assist students with navigating on-campus and off-campus medical services. We can help with housing assistance, so whether that's like a short-term emergency housing accommodation or even kind of help them coordinate with some off-campus housing changes. We do help facilitate academic assistance. This could be course load reductions, schedule changes, or withdrawals. Also, you may get an email directly from our office, or sometimes we will send, our case manager Meredith will send a notification through the associate dean of the college to let you know that a student is working with our office. We do not provide provide any detail as we really want to maintain students' privacy. But the email will really just request that, hey, the student is working with our office. We really appreciate any accommodations that you are able to make. If maybe they've missed class or are late on assignment because of the emotional stress, or even them meeting with our office as to why they haven't been able to complete that. We can also kind of coordinate different things with student employment or extracurriculars, as well as we facilitate no contact orders, which is an agreement between two students to not communicate with one another. All right. Awesome. So now that you have a foundational understanding of what our office does, what exactly is a mandated reporter and what is required of you to report. Again, there will be more trainings on this in the future for you all, but just to kind of give you a brief overview. So while the university has always had requirements for university employees to report incidents of sexual misconduct, Texas did recently enact Senate Bill 212 because of some universities who failed to report incidents that really harmed the broader campus community as well as students' access to resources. So going into effect, January 2020, the bill does enforce certain penalties for failing to timely report. So who are mandated reporters? Any individual employed by the university other than confidential employees, so those who are serving in a confidential role like in our student counseling center or student health. This also includes student employees are also mandated reporters. So when do you file a report? If you witness or receive any information in the course and scope of your employment about a student or an employee involved in an incident of sexual misconduct, you must promptly report. I know that word promptly is broad. We really do advise you to contact our office as quickly as possible. We'll talk about the best ways for you to report, but really within 24 hours is what we recommend. Also, sometimes for some of you in your role, scope of work can be a little confusing because with being a professor, sometimes it is not necessarily on duty or off duty, but we really want it to be, especially if someone is your student, if they come to you after class, if they send you an email as to maybe why they're late on something and they disclose an incident that they've been involved in that would fall into sexual misconduct, it is mandated that you do report this to our office. We kind of like to say if you have like that teacher hat on, that really is whenever you are more on duty and within your scope of work. Exemptions, of course, are of confidential employees, as well as an employee, if you personally experience an incident of sexual misconduct, you are not required to report that. However, all of the resources available at the institution are available to you as well, and we can help support you. So of course, Senate Bill 212 did enact these penalties for failing to timely report. The university does now require mandatory termination if you fail to promptly report an incident of sexual misconduct, as well as there is the potential for criminal and civil penalties. While I know this can naturally be a little anxiety inducing, my goal is really to empower you to understand what you need to report and how to navigate when someone reports to you. All right, so what types of incidents are you required by law to report? There are very specific definitions in the Student Code of Conduct of each of these reportable areas of sexual misconduct, but it's really important to know that regardless if the behavior or the incident rises to the exact definition in the code, we are still able to provide the supportive measures to students. Even if they disclose an incident to you of sexual misconduct that happened to them before they attended Texas Tech, we can still support them, as there's probably a reason that incident is coming up now. So sexual harassment is any unwelcome sex-based verbal or physical conduct. Sexual assault includes non-consensual sexual contact or non-consensual sexual intercourse, as well as attempted. Sexual exploitation is taking non-consensual or abusive sexual advantage of someone. We most commonly see this in recording or distributing intimate pictures or videos without the consent of someone, or potentially maybe using those intimate photos or videos to coerce someone into sexual activity. Also dating violence and domestic violence, so any type of violence, verbal or physical, that they experience from an intimate partner. And of course, stalking. So this is any course of conduct that someone might be in fear for their safety, and we most commonly see this as a pattern of behavior. So while these are not necessarily mandated, reported through Senate Bill 212 for you to report to our office. Texas Tech does not tolerate any type of discrimination, harassment based on any protected class. So we recommend and advise that you do report any of these incidents to our office the same way so students know what options are available to them. While it might not be a good idea to report someone who you might think is pregnant, like we are not in A Handmaid's Tale, but there are very specific rights and protections for pregnancy students, specifically under Title IX. So if a student communicates with you, they are pregnant, getting them connected to our office ensures they have access to several different resources, including additional academic assistance, parking assistance, and to make sure that their pregnancy does not inhibit their educational goals. All right, so what do you do when someone discloses? I know this again can be a little intimidating, but know that when someone does disclose something to you or share something with you, this means that they find you to be safe. This means they find you to be knowledgeable and helpful. So first of all, just start by being present. Actively listen, take a deep breath, and if you start to get anxious or worried about having to report, just be present and listen to that student and listen to what they're telling you. Respond with empathy. I know all of you most likely got into higher education because you care about students, so just be able to display that as best as you can. And again, prioritize connecting them with support. So I know it is natural to be concerned about the reporting requirements, but really focus on getting them connected to our office with someone that can help them is really helpful. So instead of maybe saying, oh, I have to file a Title IX report, I'm going to contact the Office for Student Civil Rights and Sexual Misconduct, you can just say, hey, thank you so much for telling me. I want to make sure that you're not having to walk through this alone. As a university employee, I do have to contact the Title IX office, but know that that really is just to make sure that you have access to resources and know your options. Also, it's important that you know when a report is filed, we just send out an email to that student. So most likely myself or our case manager, Meredith, sends them an email and they have no obligation to respond. We might send a follow-up one because it might get lost, but we really just want to make sure that at any point in time, if the student finds himself overwhelmed or would like to move forward with that investigation process, they can reach out to us directly. All right, so how do you report an incident? The best way is just to Google TTU Title IX report, gets you straight to our homepage. The online reporting link is on every single page of our website. That is the best way for you to report, just because especially with Senate Bill 212, that ensures that you do promptly file that report and it's directly linked to your name. Of course, you definitely can directly contact our office, the Title IX coordinator, our case manager, or myself. You are more than welcome to reach out to us. Sometimes there are nuanced situations of, does this classify scope of work, or someone disclosed this in a paper, I'm not sure how to handle that situation. We really do encourage you to reach out to us. We can make sure and clarify so that you're abiding by your university requirements, but more importantly, making sure that that student is supported throughout a really emotionally difficult situation. All right, so next steps, all of you will be required to complete the Title IX and Senate Bill 212 training through Human Resources. I'm sure they'll be communicating with you via email on how to reach that training. Also, there is an optional syllabus statement that is through the Gender Equity Council's website that you can include that does discuss Title IX as well as some of the resources on campus. Also, I encourage all of you to take out your phones, scan this QR code if you can. And what this does, it actually downloads a contact card that directly includes all the contacts of a lot of the university support staff that Dr. Gregory discussed, from Counseling Center to our office, to our Prevention Education Office, to I think a lot of different other counseling services and support services that are even off campus, as well as student information about reporting and what happens when a report is filed. So scan that. Also, this is included on our website. We encourage you to, potentially include this in a syllabus or include this on Blackboard. This is just a really great resource that we want to make sure that students can take advantage of. They always have these types of resources at their fingertips. So thank you all for your time today. I know you're receiving a lot of information, but do not hesitate to reach out to us. We want to be a resource to you in any way that we can. So next, I will hand it over to the Vice President for Research and Innovation, Dr. Hepper.
Okay, I think that actually I'm going to jump in here. My name is Suzanne Tapp. I'm the person who's been emailing you, so you could put a face and a name together right now. We really appreciate your flexibility. You've already shown that. We had a little bit of a late start, some little bloopers with the agenda. This is a new format for all of us, and it's maybe a good reminder that when we participate in a webinar or virtual meeting, we have to give each other some slack here and some flexibility. So we're going to do this. We're going to take a 5-minute break right now. Stand up, stretch, get a drink of water. When we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Heppert, Dr. Sheridan. We'll move on with presentations from Dr. Lauder and Philippi, and we'll finish out our time together today. So we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Ken?
Hi, Dr. Hepper. We're in a 5-minute break right now.
Okay, so I came in at just the right time.
Just the right time. You timed it perfectly.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. This is very helpful. He sent me a new link and I'm on. So, and it's just at the right time.
Okay, Dr. Heppert, I believe that we are ready for you to start.
Great. Well, I really want to welcome all of you. I wish I could do so face to face, of course, but I want to let everybody know that we are so extremely glad to have you all here at Texas Tech University. We want to do everything we can to support your research activity, your scholarly endeavors, and whatever creative work you're doing on the campus. I'm Vice President for Research and Innovation on the campus. And I know you saw sort of a cute little animation in some of your previous material that our group put together last year that's supposed to point out some of the things my office did. But I think it's really important that that you have some faces and some contacts to go along with some of that key information. So I want not only to sort of rehash quite a bit of what my office does, what our responsibility is, but also the services we can offer you, and a bit about who some of the critical people are that I hope you'll get to know. By all means, my office is in the administration building. It's 150. You can come by, stop by at the front desk, ask questions. If one of me or if I or one of my staff are available at the time that you're coming in here, we'd be happy to talk to you about what your questions or concerns are. And certainly, I'm always available by email. So send any questions you've got, and I'll be happy to work through any issues with you. 2 seconds here. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So one of the things I think that's incredibly important for all of us to understand is a bit about what the Office of Research actually does. Hang on just a second again. We'll get there. There we are. Where our budget comes from, approximately what it is, and what it funds as well. I try to be as open as possible about this. One of the things that I want you to note about this very busy and complicated slide is that the pie chart on the extreme left is the division budget that does not include any startup for the university. The pie chart on the right, however, is the division budget that includes the startup that our office, as well as the provost and the colleges also help to contribute to faculty startup. You'll notice it's over $10 million. So one of the things I want to emphasize is that the university is making a substantial investment in new faculty and in their success. And I have to say, compared to other institutions I've been at in the past, $10 million is really quite a significant investment on behalf of the institution. In terms of the pie chart on the left, that really shows you where most of our operating budget goes. What you can see is that we both support internal operations in our office. That's primarily staff. If you haven't realized this by now, about 95% of university budgets are spent on staff. And then we have centers and institutes, which is another substantial component of what we support. And we don't support every center and institute on campus, but our office does actually provide support for a very broad range of organizations. Some of them include the National Wind Institute, which doesn't only deal with wind energy and wind damage, but also deals broadly with renewable energy, as well as energy grid systems and other methods of energy delivery, and even fundamental atmospheric science. We also provide support for the Humanities Center on campus, one, kind of opposing the support we provide for the sciences versus the support we provide for the humanities in this particular case. And there are a number of other centers and institutes that we contribute some small and some large amounts of funding. We also provide resources for commercialization on the campus, and that's largely through our Office of Research Commercialization, I'll tell you about in a minute, as well as our incubator and other activities in our hub, research hub, which provides a variety of services and learning experiences for students, staff, and faculty, if you wish to participate, around innovation and entrepreneurship. And then there's a variety of other support we provide for research services and facilities like animal care, human subjects research, and other kinds of regulated research on the campus. I think it's important for you to know about these things because faculty often wonder where all of the resources that are coming into the research office go. And what I can guarantee you is they all go out ultimately in various ways to support research, scholarly, and creative activity on the campus. Okay, let me talk a little bit about research expenditure data at the present time. This will not be relevant to everybody, I understand this. There are some disciplines that don't have an opportunity to go out after external sponsored project funding, either from federal agencies or in some cases from pretty much any agency. That from the perspective of my office's concern about the success of faculty in their scholarly activity, it doesn't matter to my office in reality whether you bring in research dollars or not. I always say that the real reason to bring in research dollars are really two things. First of all, to support your research program if you need that support, and to make sure that you can support it through your entire scholarly career. The second reason is really to help you achieve your goals as a researcher. We don't want Texas Tech to be a place where anybody feels there's sort of an artificial ceiling on, how high they can rise in their disciplinary area. And for some people, and this is quite a bit of work, I realize, as a chemist, for some people that means that you're going to be spending much of your scholarly career searching for funding to help support the research activities in your research group. So I often talk about this because it's important for individuals to make sure that they can sustain their scholarly activity. But I also want to be upfront about the fact that across the nation, public and private research universities are often judged in part against one another, not just by the eminence of their faculty or the quality of scholarly products, but in some regards, they're also judged by this kind of data. And that's because in recent years, research funding has become so difficult to obtain that it has become a proxy measure, in a sense, of what your scholarly community thinks about the quality of what you're doing, especially in cases where you can obtain external research funding. So these are the kinds of metrics that I do mention frequently, because they do impact the university and they impact individuals in a variety of ways. I'm very pleased to tell you that these kinds of metrics have been on a very steady upward trend over the last few years at Texas Tech University. And that is entirely, I think, due to the dedication and the hard work of our faculty and our research staff as well. Research expenditures to date right now are at about $175 million. You might think, because we were closed down in active on-campus research for almost 3 months, you might think that that would mean that our research expenditures are down this year, but in fact, they're not. They're up by about $5 million, which, given everything we've been through over the last few months, is really, truly remarkable. There are many universities where this is not the case. So I really want to applaud the efforts of your colleagues who are already here they've done a spectacular job of sustaining research activity. Another thing that they've done that's remarkable is they pumped out an incredible number of sponsored project applications to the federal government, to the private sector, as well as to state agencies and philanthropic groups that support research over the last 3 months. At one point, we were up almost 20% over last year in the number of proposals that went out this year. Again, just spectacular performance. And as part of that, but also part of the hard work that was done last year, to date this year, we have $10 million more in sponsored project awards as an institution than we had the previous year. And that's a great harbinger for the future. You know, one of the things I'm going to emphasize during your period of time here at Texas Tech, you'll hear this frequently, is our need for those of us who can pursue external funding to produce more high quality proposals. I said that for example, awards have been trending up slightly, and also federal dollars and also private sector dollars coming into the university in terms of actual awards have been going up pretty dramatically. And if I were to plot the next point on this particular line graph, you would see that this coming year, we will have quite an increase in the overall value of not only awards submitted, but the number of awards submitted as well. The top line, which unfortunately, this has been cut off on the side, that shows what that particular line represents. It represents the number of awards that have been submitted every year, okay? And the troubling thing about that over the past few years, up until this year, has been that has been flat. If we're going to continue to increase the overall amount of federal awards as well as other awards that we receive every year, what we need to do is work together as an institution to submit more high quality grant proposals to federal and non-federal agencies. And so for those of you who are working in disciplines where that's your lifeblood, that's what you need to sustain your research program, you're going to hear me talking more about that over the next few years. The good news that I want all of you to be aware of is that we have resources in my office to support you to write better grants and also to write more grants without expending a lot more effort. So I'll talk about those in a few minutes. So I'm gonna shift into talking about some of the functions in the office and some of the people who work with me to help those functions. Like a lot of research offices across the country, there are only 4 faculty in our research office. There are well over 100 staff in our research office, but only 4 of them are faculty. That's because a lot of the functions we need to do to support you, whether you're from the humanities or social sciences or arts or the sciences, a lot of those functions have to be done by professional staff in the office. And I encourage you to get to know some of those people, develop a relationship with them. Those people are critically important to your success as an investigator, okay? Alice Young, my colleague, who's an associate vice president in the office, is one of the faculty members. She's from the psychological sciences, and Alice and the groups that are underneath her are responsible for helping with many of the compliance and safety functions associated with the university. Alice is a critically important person for all of you to get to know. She helps me a lot with policy, and honestly, one of the things our office is trying desperately to do in a situation where, as you all know, especially federal agencies seem to be piling on more and more regulation on universities. We are trying to get our compliance processes streamlined to the point where they don't pose such a burden for you. Let me talk about some of the things, the vast majority of these would fall under Dr. Young, but let me talk about some of the things we do have available. Our grant submissions, or our some of you will know that as pre-award program, is run by Amy Cook, who is an assistant vice president in the office. And that office is not under Alice, but Amy's people are the ones who will ensure that as you submit grants, you're doing so in a manner that allows the federal agencies, they're consistent with the format of the federal agencies, so they allow the federal agencies to successfully accept and review those grants. And so Amy is an incredibly important piece, cog. She's a wonderful individual who, as you get to know her, you'll understand how valuable she is, and her staff are incredibly devoted to what they do and just really, really wonderful people. Amy's group also does all of the contract negotiation that occurs within my office, and that has pretty much anything that deals with sponsored research, which now comes in as a contract, and there's more and more of it coming in as a contract, comes in through Amy. She's a wonderful resource, and so you can pick her up and pick up the phone, call her and ask her why something is happening, and she'll be happy to inform you and try to help you through any bumps that you're having in the road. The rest of these individuals, starting with Matt Rowe, are mainly under the direction of Alice Young. Matt runs environmental health and safety, and that program has a variety of resources, not only to help you set up your laboratories and programs, and you may be setting up a shop, you may be setting up a studio which involves the use of chemicals in the creation of ceramics, for example. If you're doing that, Matt and Matt's group can tell you how to pick up hazardous waste, how to order chemicals and store them safely. They're there as a resource to help you. So please, by all means, Matt is really programmed to try to help individuals overcome obstacles. So reach out to him and get to know him. Marianne Evola works directly under Dr. Young. She runs human subjects training and responsible research for training for faculty and students at Texas Tech University. And again, she's a great person, very knowledgeable about those areas. It's really critically important that you think about dialoguing with your students about responsible conduct of research. Because as a faculty member, you're really a first-line person in ensuring that the institution is complying with federal agencies. Again, if you have financial disclosures, conflicts of interest are not necessarily bad things. What they indicate is that you're doing a lot of things, that you have, things that are happening formally at the university, but you're also involved in other kinds of activities, perhaps like helping to set up startup companies that are using university technologies. We don't look at conflicts of interest as problems. We look at them as real opportunities for you and the university, and these individuals can help you with ensuring that you address those, that they're properly managed, and that we stay on the right side not only of the university's regulations, but also federal regulations. Like a lot of universities, we have programs in biosafety, human subjects research. Cassidy Street works with Dr. Marianne Evola on those issues. If you're doing human subjects, Cassidy is a great resource in that area. We have a laboratory safety committee. Dimitri Pappas is my colleague in chemistry. He's wonderful. And again, all of these folks, I can tell you, are really have an attitude that they want to help you through barriers and issues so that you can get the things done in your laboratory that you need to do. So these are great resources. The same with laser and radiation safety. And Dr. Phil Smith and our ICUC, I'm the institutional official for animal care, so I work very closely with our ICUC. And Phil is a great resource, as is our attending vet, Dr. Tiffany Brooks. Okay, I want to talk just briefly about research management and encourage you to do a few things. You know, for those of you who have a research group or a research cohort or a performance cohort that you'll be working with in a laboratory, a studio, whether it's an art studio or performance studio, one of the things I want to encourage you to do is, and you are the first line in this, is to establish a culture of safety in those groups. That's critically important. And as I mentioned, environmental health and safety is going to be a great resource for you in helping to navigate the nuts and bolts of how you do that. In addition, they have a lot of training resources. So if you're concerned about making sure that your students have some resources around handling hazardous materials, or waste disposal, or even things as simple as understanding how to use fire extinguishers to put out fires, get in touch with Environmental Health and Safety. That's Matt Rowe, and they will help you. KU or TTUIT and the libraries really have tremendous resources to help you establish credible data management plans. And that's important because a lot of federal agencies now are going to ask you to submit data management plans to them. And unfortunately, in these days, those data management plans cannot be, I'm going to write something to a $45 disposable hard drive and stack it on that big stack that's under my desk, okay? IT and the libraries both have data storage resources that you can use as a renewable, reliable resource to store your data so that you'll have it for the long term, and so that you can provide it in the way that federal guidelines require data now to be provided to people in your research community. Again, I would contact them and talk to them about the resources that are available and make use of them. I can't tell you how many of those portable hard drives I have at home that right about a year after I bought them from Best Buy gave up the ghost. It's just not a good way to store your data. Also, I'll encourage you to talk to your students seriously about research integrity. You know, students do not come with all the knowledge that they should, particularly as graduate students. Sometimes they don't understand about plagiarism and other issues about research integrity. So actively engage them in discussions about research integrity. And again, we have great training resources that can help you as a mentor work with students so that they understand what's expected of them. Unfortunately, one of the tacks the federal government has been taking with regard to research integrity is if we run into a situation where a student has provided something, for example, for a grant that you've submitted that was abstracted directly from somebody else's publication, they will hold the student responsible, but they will also hold you personally responsible for that oversight. So talking with your students about research integrity is an incredibly important thing. The last thing I'll say is it's really important for you to sort of pay yourself first, in a sense. And by that I mean establish goals and deadlines and time for yourself so that you can get your professional activities done. Many times you're going to be so busy, especially those of you who are junior faculty who've never taught. and try to do research or scholarly or creative activity at the same time, you're going to be so busy over the next few months, you'll blink and wonder where they went. Make sure you carve out time so that you can start to make progress on your key research and scholarship goals, okay? I think there are a variety of ways to do that, including some wonderful faculty writing groups that are sponsored by Texas Tech University. There are quite a number sponsored that are specifically for female faculty, and the feedback I get on those constantly is they are tremendously useful as a way to carve out time every week to make progress on scholarly activities. So make sure you do that, because that pays you back in terms of making progress on your future activity. Okay, pardon me, I apologize. All right. Okay, here we go. I talked about plagiarism already. Make sure as you collaborate with other individuals that you talk with them in detail about co-authorship. I can tell you right now that one of the common things that Alice experiences, and she didn't seem to experience it 10 or 15 years ago, one of the common things she experiences in terms of disagreements among faculty about research is attribution for co-authorship. So as you work with individuals, make sure that you carve out a little bit of time beforehand, before you actually start the project, to have just a peer-to-peer conversation about how you're going to treat co-authorship on projects. Believe me, that's something, if it can be uncomfortable, but if you bring it up beforehand and just have a straightforward discussion about it, it's going to make things so much easier as you get around to start publishing results. And finally, again, I encourage you to report conflicts of interest, okay? There are a variety of things you need to report. Obviously, the federal government is coming down very hard on individuals, because we see examples of indictments in the news all the time about individuals who are not reporting that they have appointments at foreign institutions, or that they're receiving salary, or they're receiving support from foreign institutions. So those are things that are incredibly important for you to disclose to the institution, and also to disclose to federal agencies. We can help you with that. So be open and upfront about those interactions. Not all of them are problematic, but all of them do need to be disclosed. This is Eric Hickey, who's another faculty member in my office. He's a professor of plant and soil science. Eric works a lot with international relations and research data metrics. He's also a strong liaison to a lot of the STEM fields. He works with faculty who head research centers. He works with individual faculty to try to overcome their barriers to progress in some technology fields. And he's also working with the Health Science Center. So Eric is a great resource in my office and a great person to know. Abby Swingen is a professor of history. She's another faculty member and associate vice president in my office. She works a lot with special initiatives. She works quite a bit with some of the humanities awards that are available every year from NEH. But she also works on other kinds of special faculty recognition. She works on internal and external funding opportunities, and tries to keep a liaison between our office and the humanities and social sciences and the arts. She also heads Faculty Research Club, which I'll tell you about in just a minute here. So there are a variety of internal programs we have, and I realize I'm running out of time, so I need to move quickly here. We have a proposal assistance program, which is a small amount of money, which is really intended to help polish up and make more competitive proposals that have been previously submitted. Again, Abby coordinates that program. She's a wonderful person to talk to about that. We have a program for providing subvention funds for open access publication. We'd like to see more of that being used by some of our colleagues in the humanities, social sciences. Frankly, a lot of it is used by folks in the sciences. So again, please, Abby coordinates that program. As you're looking at open access publication, apply early in the academic year for those funds because they tend to go quickly, but we support that. The same with the Scholarship Catalyst program. We have small amounts of funding for researchers, particularly in the arts, humanities, and social sciences, to help get a jump start on generating some of their initial research and scholarly results. Then we also, as I mentioned, we have Faculty Research Club, which is an open forum for faculty who come together and discuss common research interests. That usually happens twice a semester. And I also have a research leadership discussion, which happens twice a semester throughout the year. I encourage you to take a look at those. Those will be advertised to all faculty, and you're welcome to join. Of course, we've been doing them virtually lately, but people have really enjoyed those opportunities. We have an annual celebration of faculty excellence, and also we have a variety of resources that keep you aware of where there are residential fellowships and other faculty awards programs available. So take advantage of those. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. You can take a look at that. A couple of other offices I want to mention that are valuable. Kay Tyndall, who is on maternity leave right now, but is replaced by Carrie Romo, her deputy, has an Office of Research Development. These are folks who can help you improve the quality of your grant writing. And moreover, not only that, not only do they coordinate a variety of workshops throughout the year that help with that, they also help plan and work on and organize very complicated large proposals. We've been moving into more multidisciplinary proposals and multi-institutional proposals in particularly science and technology areas. And Kay's group has the capability and the manpower to help you put together those proposals by gathering a lot of boilerplate from 3 or 4 other partnering institutions and put that proposal together as if it looks like one person wrote it. That's critically important to be competitive at the national level. So get to know Kay, knock on her door, and find out what the resources are that are available through this office. Again, there's a list here that I'm not going to go through because I'm running out of time. Here's Amy Cook. She's our pre-awards person, incredibly valuable. Her group handles all proposals, all proposal and award negotiations, contract negotiations. She can provide you with a lot of information on compliance. And although business services is not in my office, she can also act as a liaison if you're having trouble getting the information you need. Amy is a fabulous resource. She is one of the best people in this field I have ever met. So get to know Amy. I'll let Amy talk to you about export controls issues. Okay, I'm going to skip to the last 2 slides. Kim Graham is the director she's an associate vice president who runs our innovation and entrepreneurship programs. If you're thinking about starting a company, if some of your students want to get information and education on innovation and entrepreneurship activities, Kim is the person. And Kim also runs a variety of grant programs that help provide monetary support for innovation and entrepreneurship. Our innovation hub is out on 4th Street. It is between our campus and the Health Science Center. Go out there sometime and see the resources that Kim has to offer. This is truly a spectacular program. And so if you're thinking about technology, innovation, intellectual property, Kim is a person you need to get to know. And finally, Cameron Smith is the person who handles our intellectual property for the whole university system. His office is the one you will disclose intellectual property to. His office is the one that ultimately helps you protect it through patenting. And his office also is responsible for marketing it and ultimately will help you license it either to a startup that you want to be associated with, or to a company that already has technology in that area. I know I've gone through this in a blitz, but as I said, feel free to contact my office at any time about any of this information, and I will make sure you get to the right person. That's the end of my presentation today. So I want to go ahead and hand over this time to Dr. Mark Sheridan, who's Vice Provost for Graduate and Postgraduate Affairs, Dean of the Graduate School. Mark's a great resource with regard to dealing with graduate students at Texas Tech University. Mark?
Mark, you want to unmute your mic?
Thanks, Suzanne, and thanks, Joe. The reason why Joe and I are sort of tag teaming this time here is graduate students and postdocs are a lot of the fuel that drives our research enterprise. And so I'm still trying to be able to advance the slides now. So there's a delay. There we go. But I wanted to say, first of all, welcome to you. We're really excited that you're part of the Texas Tech community. Whether you're a brand new faculty member or you're coming to us from a faculty position elsewhere, we're really excited that you're part of the Texas Tech community. And I was thinking about when I sat in your seat as a brand new faculty member, and I know Joe feels the same way because we've talked about this a lot, some of the things that Joe mentioned in terms of career development and time management and so on, you do avail yourself of your faculty colleagues, certainly in your department. But I know my door is open, Joe's door is open, and all the folks that Joe mentioned, because we're here to help you succeed. And so I just want you to know at the very outset that I'm always happy to talk to folks at any time. I just want to give you a little bit of a sense of our graduate student population and some of the resources that we have available to support graduate students, as well as postdocs. And so let me begin by just giving you a brief overview of the organization of the division. Three major components: the graduate school, the Office of Postdoctoral Affairs, and the Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Fellowships. The leadership team, and you'll probably get to be fairly acquainted with these folks over time. Christy Gaines is an associate dean. She handles most of the student affairs issues in the graduate school. Dr. Tim Dallas heads our Office of Postdoctoral Affairs and also works on for the Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Fellowships and liaisons with the Office of Research and Innovation, because some of those large multidisciplinary grants that Joe alluded to often involve training grants and other sorts of large grants that we help put together and to support. And then Dave Dorfert is Associate Dean that oversees programs and program review for us. All of the rules and regulations of graduate education at the university are the responsibility of the graduate faculty collectively. And if you are coming to us as a tenure track or tenured faculty member, you are de facto a member of the graduate faculty. Otherwise, your department may nominate you for graduate faculty status. And then the body that deals with matters that you've delegated responsibility to as a graduate faculty is the Graduate Council, and there's representatives from each of the different academic units. I will say this, and it's not a huge problem, but officially the graduate students, whether they're doctoral students, master's students, they're actually officially students of the graduate school. And so while you may be in biology, which is my home department, and you're working with doctoral students, when they get their diploma, it says graduate school on it. And so we work very closely with all the units around campus. We have about 100 different master's programs and about 65 different doctoral programs. So I'm going to focus mostly on grad students, but again, we do a lot with postdocs, helping you recruit postdocs, helping you mentor postdocs, and then the annual review and appraisal of postdoc performance and so on is all coordinated through that Office of Postdoctoral Affairs. So graduate students, first off, you should get a sense of the size and scope of our graduate enterprise at Texas Tech. We're ranked top 10% nationally in full-time graduate enrollment among all the U.S. Universities with graduate students. We also are ranked the top 10% of students in the STEM field. So we're clearly a STEM emphasis, but that does not mean we have a lot of students in the arts, humanities, and social behavioral sciences. The breakdown of the population, we've done a very good job over the last few years of recruiting for diversity. And so as you can see there, we're getting close to parity with our male and female students. In fact, actually just recently, the population of female students outnumbered our male graduate students. And we're doing, I think, an increasingly better job of recruiting diverse students. And you can see that the Hispanic student population is growing. It's not quite the same as the demographics in the state of Texas, but it's getting close. We have a lot of work to do in some of the other demographic groups, and we have a lot of emphasis in helping recruit underrepresented minority students, first generation graduate students, and so on. And we collaborate a lot with Carol Sumner's office. Most of the students are domestic, but we do have a large population of international students, and that's a particular challenge for us at this time of year. We had about 1,000 newly admitted international students, and 700 of those are not able to obtain visas to come to the U.S. This fall, and so we're working to try to provide opportunities to them through online education. And you can see, unlike a lot of universities with graduate enterprises, similar to ours, we have a majority of our international students are from India, followed by China. Most universities, it's the reverse relationship. The other thing which I find very interesting is most of our grad students, when they finish their degrees, stay in the state of Texas. This is the most recent alumni survey that we conducted. The other thing that you should be aware of, as a new faculty member, I find this probably really interesting because most of us are schooled in how to train graduate students to succeed us in the professorate or in academia. But in fact, only about a third of the students will actually pursue careers in higher ed. And this is a statistic that's not too different than the national trends now. Many students go into other sectors of the economy. And that's why I think it's increasingly important as new faculty that we learn how to mentor students who want to go into these other sectors. And we'll talk more about what we do for mentor development. Here just a quick overview of our resources. We know that increasingly employers want skills other than disciplinary knowledge. We have developed and implement now a comprehensive professional and career development program that complements disciplinary training. And one of the things that every graduate student on this campus is required to do is responsible academic training. And so it's not just the students who are on NSF grants or not the students that are on NH grants. Every graduate student must complete that training, and we really do appreciate the support from Joe's office and Mariana Vola in particular. The Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Fellowships, it administers our internal fellowship program. We're very fortunate. We have one of the largest endowments in the United States to support graduate fellowships, about $60 million. We give about $3 million away annually in various fellowship opportunities. And that office also helps students as well as postdocs find external opportunities to which they can write to. An example being the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. We have a graduate center, and this is actually a national model. It's a dedicated space for the exclusive use of graduate students and postdocs. where we have most of our professional career development events, but it's also where we have academic and support services dedicated to graduate students. We have an extensive graduate life program because you know through surveys that students need other things besides being chained to a lab bench like I was and Joe was. And so we do provide lots of opportunities for students to get to know each other and to form communities within disciplines, but also between and among disciplines, which does foster interdisciplinariness. And we also have a body, the Graduate Assembly, which represents the interests of graduate students, and they meet monthly, and then I visit with them typically at those meetings. We do have a lot of resources for faculty. Monthly, we have these roundtables to discuss various issues, recruitment of students, mentoring issues, and so on. But we also put a lot of resources on the graduate school website. And so as you get familiar with the website, you'll see there's a grad school tab in your e-reader that will be the source of all those resources. So just to, whoops, sorry, went too far. There's a little delay there. The Grad Center, just again to give you a sense of what we have there. We hosted over 350 events last year. Again, the professional development program focuses on leadership, communication, teamwork, professionalism, and ethics. And then there's a lot of work on career path and how to explore different career opportunities and so on that we collaborate with the career services with. And so that's a very well-attended program. This year, at least this fall semester, most of that's going to be done virtually. The facilities itself is we do have, again, it's the west wing of the administration building, soon to be moving over to West Hall, which is kind of on the boundary of University and Broadway, where we have conference facilities, networking meeting space, study space, and coffee bar, and so on. And typically we have food for various events that usually draws the students out. Academic support includes a graduate writing center, statistical consulting service, and help with library research and library resources. And those folks are on site in the grad center. And then for student support services, we do have folks that again come on site fairly regularly from career services. We have some financial counseling, offer conflict resolution, and then international concierge services for various issues that international students may face. We do have a lot of funding. Unlike Joe, I didn't give you the whole breakdown. I think since I arrived in 2014, we've put $9 million new into supporting graduate students. Most of that went to programs. A good part of that we administered through my office here, and that's on top of the endowment support. So we provide assistance to departments to help recruit students through various bringing students to campus and other activities that you might engage in. And then we put a lot of resources into recruitment of students through recruitment fellowships of different types, and then sort of the top award that we now have is this Distinguished Graduate Student Assistantship. I think we have 72 of those this year, and we'll be adding 72 more of those over the next 3 years. Again, that is aimed to be able to recruit the very best students to Texas Tech. Again, the endowment also provides for a host of general fellowships. Students of any stage of their graduate program can apply for these. And then we're also trying to increase the throughput. Certainly, when I first arrived, we had some challenges with degree completion in a timely manner. So I instituted this doctoral completion fellowship program where we put students on my support. It frees up your support. The students can now work solely on their research, get that dissertation complete, and then the money that was supporting that student is freed up to bring in another new student. So we do a couple things with that. We also provide travel support to students. Typically we have about enough money for 500 awards a year to help students to give papers and present posters at conferences. And we also have a relatively small competition for grad students to actually do their research, particularly in fields where there's not a lot of outside funding. And so there's typically 2 competitions a year, one in the fall and one in the spring, and some in the STEM fields and some in in the social, behavioral sciences and arts and humanities fields. So we do try our best to provide the glue that's able to get students to complete their research work. And then we have 3 different competitions during the year, and Joe helps support those. So we have a 3-minute thesis competition, an arts and humanities competition, as well as a research poster competition. And so the 3-minute thesis and arts and humanities competitions are typically in the fall, and the poster competition in the spring. And again, it doesn't matter what your field of study, you are welcome to participate in any and all of those competitions. And we've found a great success in our 3-minute thesis competitors, because they often will go on to our regional competition and do quite well. So we're really excited about providing a venue for our students to showcase their work to others. And our judges are typically from the community, and so it's a good way to engage in our community. This is a study that was done at my alma mater a few years ago, and this comes as no surprise to any of you. Grad study is stressful, but this study sort of quantified it. At this day at Berkeley, 47% of the surveyed doctoral students self-reported anxiety, depression. That's a huge percentage of the students. There is some variation among the disciplines. And I think that's probably connected to uncertainty about their financial future following their graduate study. And then there's a follow-up study that was done that identified some of the contributing factors to the stress and diversity. And so they're outlined there for you. There's 10 most common factors. 3 of those are directly related to advising issues. And so I just want to bring that to your attention, because you play a critical role in so many respects, but also in trying to alleviate some of the stress and anxiety that our students do feel. But certainly we do collaborate with the Counseling Center, and so we do provide during the course of the year some of those student life workshops that we put on have to do with stress management and so on. So we do our best, but I know our resources are limited, and so we're continuing to work with the Counseling Center on how we can meet the challenges of this increasing issue among our grad students and postdocs. So what that means is you play a critical role. You have many roles: teacher, coach, research director, counselor, career advisor, role model. But the one thing I know for sure from my own career, but also over many years talking with faculty colleagues, is there's not one style of mentoring. Different students may require different styles of mentoring, and we certainly know there's a lot of data to show this. Underrepresented minority students, they actually stop out of their graduate programs at twice the rate of majority students, and so those students do have special challenges. And so one of the things that we're working on is to provide you as faculty some of the tools and the mentoring skills necessary to help those students succeed while in graduate school. And so one of the things I just want to outline, because this happens, a discussion typically every semester, try to learn the rules and help your students navigate them, assure the students meet the deadlines for graduation and so on, and be actively involved in the students' program. Sit with them to develop a individual development plan. That's part of the required advising of our doctoral students now. And so that's something that should be done initially and then reviewed periodically to help chart the course of the students' development and what their career aspirations may be, and be fully vested. If they're interested in an external fellowship, help them with that. And then certainly with regard to the disquisitions and so on, help make sure that those meet professional standards, because I can't tell you the number of theses and dissertations that we have sent over that, quite frankly, I think some faculty have not read, and that is really disappointing. And so don't be surprised if you hear stories where Sheridan has sent those back, because you are the gatekeeper. And you are the standard that when a student graduates, when it says Texas Tech University on that diploma, it means something. So again, I really do appreciate the hard work that you'll do on behalf of our students and our postdocs. And again, as I said at the very outset, if there's any question you have about any of these things, again, I know there's a lot of information here. Feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to visit with you. And typically what I do is after a few weeks have gone by, we'll have a follow-up meeting. So if there's some other questions and we can get more details about perhaps career development and so on, that we can do in a more informal setting, because I know the information's coming at you through a fire hose. So with that, I think I'm done. Yep. And I want to turn it over to my colleague, Justin Louder, who is Associate Vice Provost for eLearning and Academic Partnerships. So, Justin.
Mark, I'm going to jump in here. This is Suzanne, and may I encourage you to look at the Q&A? There's a question there for you that perhaps you could.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's ask that stuff at the beginning. No. Well, let me say this. Law is separate, but all other programs are part of the grad school. So we don't pull out MPA or MBA. All those are part of the grad school. The only one that is not included is the law school. So law school is a separate autonomous, more or less autonomous entity, except for the LLM program, which we collaborate on.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate that clarification. For those of you who didn't see that Q&A question, it was asking about the statistics, including professional degrees such as the law school and MPA program and MBA program, et cetera. So thank you again, Mark. We're going to take a break, actually, before we hear from Dr. Louder and Dr. Philippi. So let's take a break until 3:15, and we'll be back here to wrap up our day. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for sticking in there with me. My name is Justin Louder, and I'm the Associate Vice Provost for eLearning here at Texas Tech. And I'm also a faculty member and assistant professor of practice in the College of Education. So it's great to virtually see all of you today and meet you. This, of course, is the world that I'm used to living in, the virtual world, working with all of our online programs and regional sites. I'm going to give you a quick overview of distance learning or online learning here at Texas Tech and provide some information, hopefully, that will help you as you start to utilize Texas Tech's learning management systems and online systems. Any questions you might have regarding online learning, hybrid learning, or remote learning, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and I will do my best to look at them and answer them while I'm speaking. And if I miss one, I will get back with you. I get to share this time with my colleague, Dr. Larry Philippi, who's the director of our Student Disability Services, which works very closely with the eLearning division in terms of providing accessible services to all of our students. And so I will talk a little bit about accessibility with online learners, and then Larry or Dr. Philippi will talk more in general about accessibility services and the work his office does. I will see here if I can make the slide progress there. So the eLearning division is part of the Office of the Provost and includes a number of different offices, including Worldwide eLearning, which is what we call our online programs division. Here at Texas Tech University, we offer more than 100 different online or distance degree programs at the bachelor's, master's, and doctoral level. We actually offer more online or hybrid doctorates, both EDD and PhD, than any other school in the state of Texas, most of our other Big 12 colleagues and comparable institutions. So Texas Tech has been doing online or distance learning since the 1960s. We actually, in 1964, 65, we had 4 faculty members from the College of Engineering load up into a Cessna and fly all over West Texas, delivering classes towards a master's in engineering. So that was the first distance program Texas Tech offered. And then we moved into IVC, or interactive video teleconference, and then videotape delivery courses, and finally online delivery of courses. So we offer more than 80 different programs, fully online here at Texas Tech, and then most of our other programs offer at least a good percentage of their coursework via online delivery. And right now, of course, moving into COVID, we're offering more online classes this fall than we have in the past, and more hybrid classes. The eLearning office provides faculty support for online program and course development. We handle federal and state requirements for online and distance instruction or out-of-state instruction. We work with Larry and Student Disability Services, and then the Teaching and Learning Professional Development Center and Suzanne on accessibility, and also initiatives to support our faculty as you teach our students with a variety of different modalities. The division also includes TTU K-12. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Regional teaching sites around the state, academic partnerships and continuing education, and also the OLLI office, which is the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. And so all of those things, from online learning to K-12 learning, professional development, adult continuing ed, and OLLI are part of the eLearning division. So we have a number of regional teaching sites around the state, and many of you may have the opportunity to teach at one of our sites, either physically or through hybrid delivery or remote delivery of instruction, or travel to one of our sites to help recruit or work with students. We have one site out in El Paso, and right now that site offers 1-degree program, which is the Bachelor's of Architecture. It's a pretty incredible site. It's actually housed in a historic train depot. So if you ever get to El Paso, downtown El Paso, Texas Tech El Paso is there at the historic train depot. And so we also have the Texas Tech Center at Junction, which is a teaching ranch. For those of you that may be familiar with Bear Bryant and the Junction Boys, That actually happened at our site in Junction. Before it was a Texas Tech Center, it was part of the Texas A&M system, and then it moved to Texas Tech in the 1970s. That is a teaching ranch of about 500 or so acres. Many faculty in biology and the School of Art, chemistry and other areas have used the facilities in Junction to hold summer classes and to do research. It's a great facility in Junction there in Central Texas. And then we move kind of up the I-35 corridor or so, where we have regional teaching sites in Fredericksburg and Marble Falls, another one in Waco, one in Cleburne, in partnership with Hill College, which is a community college there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a site in Rockwall, in partnership with Rockwall ISD, and then a site in Collin County in McKinney at the Collin Higher Education Teaching Center. Our newest site that actually we are opening this fall for the first time is Texas Tech at Austin College, which is in partnership with Austin College in Sherman. So as you can see, not only do we offer online programs that are available, throughout the state and the nation and the world, we have regional teaching sites that place a Texas Tech degree close to many students that may not be able to come to Lubbock or do one of our online programs. The Office of Continuing and Professional Education, as part of eLearning, is the office that works to support non-credit programs. So if you are going to work to develop a continuing education class, put on a conference, develop some kind of non-credit program, you will work with the Office of Continuing and Professional Education. We have a student registration system, we are able to take payments, and we have a separate learning management system for online delivery of continuing education classes. So all of those things are available through that office. There are some nominal fees associated with it, but we want to work with all of you as you work to develop non-credit or professional education programs. We also have a partnership with a company called Ed2Go, where we offer hundreds of online courses through low cost to students throughout Texas. And some of them are certificate programs, non-academic certificate, but certificate programs, and some are just continuing education. So Worldwide eLearning is the office you are mostly going to deal with, I'm sure, especially in the next couple of weeks. Our eLearning office includes a number of instructional designers that will work with you as you design or develop online or hybrid course. And actually later today or early tomorrow, each of you should be receiving an email from the eLearning office pairing you with one of the instructional designers in the division. That way you have somebody you can go to and ask if you've got questions about Blackboard, if you've got questions about online course design or development, any questions having to do with the approved technology that I'm going to talk about here in a second. So we are going to go ahead and pair you with a designer. We also have a Blackboard support office to answer your Blackboard questions and are there to help you throughout your transition to teaching at Texas Tech and into the fall. You can see there's a number of things on the screen that the eLearning office will work with you on, especially with your online and hybrid classes. And so we will help you with things like design and how to do assessment in online courses, help you structure courses, and we will do course reviews to make sure that what you want your students to do can be accomplished in your online classes. We have a video production lab to work with online and hybrid courses. So we will help you record short video lectures. We try to limit those to about 10 minutes or so, or 10-minute chunks of time, because we know students really will only watch about a 10-minute video at one sitting. We work with ways to engage your students in online classes, how you interact with them, because one of the key things in online and hybrid courses is to make sure you have regular and substantive interaction with your students. And so we want to make sure that you are doing things in your online classes like having regular discussion boards, providing announcements, providing feedback, and having synchronous sessions if that is something you want to do and something we need to do as part of your program. We will work with you all that. We do not want any of our online or distance students to feel like they're out there on their own or they're participating in a correspondence course. So please work with us in terms of interaction and engagement in your online and distance courses. We also have an office that handles online accessibility. So they will work with you to make sure all of your content that you're loading on Blackboard is fully accessible. Texas Tech utilizes a product called Blackboard Ally that is already loaded in Blackboard. And so any content that you load into Blackboard, you will see a red, a green, or yellow icon next to it. Tells you if it is accessible, which would be the green icon, if it's partially accessible, which is the yellow icon, or if it's not accessible to learners, it's the red icon. And then it will give you tips on how to make things more accessible. So I see in the chat that there's some questions about the acceptable use of some apps. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. We have a number of applications that are provided and approved for student use. And what we would ask you to do is restrict use to the ones that are approved. If there's something that you want to use that has not been approved, you can make that request in to my office and we can evaluate it. In particular, the one in the chat, I believe a faculty member asked about Slack. That is not fully approved for use at Texas Tech. This fall, we are doing a limited pilot with a faculty member to evaluate use. And so depending on how that goes, we will expand it beyond there. And so we also provide Blackboard support. And so Blackboard support is available 24/7 to students and instructors at Texas Tech. For faculty, you will go to facultysupport.elearning.ttu.edu, and that will have 24/7 support. You can also contact the Blackboard office, which is just blackboard@ttu.edu via email. And so those two things are available to faculty 24/7. And then for students enrolled in our online programs at our campus in Costa Rica and in one of the regional sites, they have access to 24/7 support through studentservices.elearning.ttu.edu. In addition to the support eLearning provides, the IT division, IT Help, provides support for students and faculty as well. So it's done in partnership with IT to provide Blackboard support. Texas Tech University offers a number of courses and training classes for Blackboard, both recorded that are already available on the eLearning website, and also virtual trainings that we do either via Blackboard Collaborate or Zoom. And so those things are available for faculty as you get started. I'm looking at the time. I know I'm running a little short. I want to make sure Larry has plenty of time. So let me go through the next couple of slides here. One thing we want to be sure is that you use approved technology here at Texas Tech. Part of the reason we ask you to do that is that it has been vetted for approval to make sure it is accessible to all learners. It complies with the university's security processes and security policies. And it also applies to or complies with FERPA. And so we do ask that if you're contacted by a vendor or you want to use some software, you check with either IT or eLearning before using it or having students use it. We want to make sure we keep students secure, we keep the student information secure, and we want to make sure everything's accessible. In the past, we've had faculty teach their courses using things like Twitter and Facebook. And we ask you to limit the use of Facebook, in particular and Twitter, to teach courses, because that information is not secure. And once it's posted on those platforms, you no longer own it, and those companies do. We have a number of approved technology that we ask you to utilize in your class. And this is a list, a current list as of earlier last week, and we add to it as we go. So for classroom engagement tools, right now we have approval with Turning Technology, Microsoft Teams, Foliotech, Top Hat, and Pearson. We are in the middle of doing a campus-wide RFP for a classroom engagement tool. And once that's finalized, we will have some additional information on tools their way. But right now, these are the things that are approved. As far as learning management systems, we are a Blackboard school, and we use Blackboard Learn. And so please utilize that for all of your coursework. We also have a Blackboard instance for continuing education. Please do not set up a Canvas class or a Google class or Piazza, anything like that. We ask you to use Blackboard as your learning management system. For quiz and test taking, we've got Respondus and a company called Proctorio to provide remote proctoring services for online tests, virtual tests. For instructional tools, we have a product called Flipgrid, which is supported by folks at the TLPDC, and then two products called Feedback Fruits and Playposit that are supported out of eLearning. All of these things have been approved, they've been vetted, and they can be used in online and hybrid courses. And finally, for audio and video, I saw someone ask about Panopto. We do not have Panopto here at Texas Tech. We are a media site school. And so please utilize either Skype or Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate or MS or Microsoft Teams for your synchronous sessions or discussions with students. We also have Skype for Business, not general Skype. And then we have things like Screencast-O-Matic that can be used, but we really ask that you keep in MediaSite, Collaborate, and Zoom for those kind of tools. There's a question about how we can make sure our intellectual property is protected when we make recorded lectures available to students. So we would ask that you utilize Blackboard and keep your videos within Blackboard and MediaSite so that it is protected and behind the university single sign-on, so it's not out there for general public use. You can also place a statement in your syllabi that says you're providing recorded lectures for students to be used in the course. It is not to be used outside of course or other things. And so then if somebody does take your intellectual property, it starts to look as a content issue or conduct issue, excuse me, for students. And there was also a question about, are we going to move to a different LMS anytime soon? Texas Tech will be moving to Blackboard Ultra over the semester break, or our plan is to move to Blackboard Ultra between the fall and spring semesters. We regularly look at other LMSs that are in the market, but right now Texas Tech has been and will be in a long-term contract with our current LMS or provider, but we will be moving to Blackboard Ultra in the next couple of years. And finally, and Larry, I'm sorry I've gone over my time just a bit. We also offer the TTU K-12 program, which is an approved K through 12 school district here at Texas Tech, where we offer virtual online kindergarten through 12th grade instruction to students really from anywhere. You can graduate with a high school diploma that says Texas Tech University High School. Since we started in 1993, TTU K-12 has served over 400,000 students in more than 70 countries. This year, as you can imagine, we have enrolled a number of new students into the program. And so TTU K-12 is fully approved by the state of Texas and Texas Education Agency. We offer the same diploma that students would get in a brick and mortar school. And so it's available to all students wherever they may be. It is a tuition-based program, but we do offer, if any of you have children that you would like to look at the TTU K-12 program, we do offer discounted tuition for Texas Tech University employees and their children. So that's an option for you there. As I come up on my last slide, I want to give you some contact information that hopefully you can keep handy. So the general e-learning website is elearning.ttu.edu, and that will have information on all of the programs we offer online, as well as all of the support services that e-learning provides. If you have a specific Blackboard question, please email blackboard@ttu.edu, and we will get back with you, hopefully within a couple of hours, but definitely in the next business day. General e-learning questions can go to elearning@ttu.edu. And then I provided a couple of links to some websites that we have developed specifically for faculty during this COVID transition. Although in the spring we called it emergency remote instruction, now going into the fall, it's not emergency instruction anymore. We are asking that faculty who may be teaching online work to make sure your online classes meet the requirements set forth by SACS and the coordinating board, which is our regional accreditor and statewide higher education body, which means that the classes meet the principles of good practice of online learning. And so now if you're teaching an online class, like I said, we need regular and substantive interaction. We need measurable student learning outcomes and assessments. So in the e-learning staff is here to help you do all of that. But please look at those two websites that I've listed here, the online faculty resources page and faculty and staff services details all of this information. And finally, we've developed a website specific for students because although, as you heard at the beginning of today, our students are Gen Z and they've all grown up with technology, they may be comfortable in social media using Twitter or Facebook, Snapchat or TikTok, but that doesn't mean they're comfortable learning online. So we have a number of resources dedicated for students on how to make an online course successful, how to be successful in online class, how to be engaged in their online course. So even though our students may have grown up with the technology, that doesn't necessarily mean they're comfortable with it. With that, what I'd like to do is take just a quick minute and look at the chat over here for some questions and answer those. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Larry Philippi with Student Disability Services. So in the chat, there's a question about YouTube videos, demonstrations related to material covered. We would actually recommend that you utilize MediaSite. That is the approved university delivery method, and once again, it's behind eRater, and so that only students that are enrolled in your course will have access to that. Many faculty do use YouTube to post videos, and they use the YouTube captioning feature. So it's not that you can't do it, but once again, we would recommend that you use MediaSite to house your videos. In terms of using Twitter for discussion, once again, we would prefer you use the approved university technology. Once something goes in Twitter, when you don't control it, Twitter can mine it. And depending on what is discussed in class, there could be some FERPA violations. And so before utilizing Twitter and things like that, please check with me and let's also talk with the FERPA office, just because there are some concerns with things like that. And finally, scheduled training about Blackboard Ultra. Yes, we will do training, more than likely. That will be later this fall as we have a plan on how and when we will make the switch. Like I said, it should be over the holiday break at the end of the fall semester. But I don't have the exact dates yet. So once we know that, we will have plenty of trainings. One of the great things about the TLPDC is that they offer mini trainings as well. So between eLearning and the TLPDC, there'll be plenty of opportunities to make sure you are familiar and comfortable with the various programs that we offer and the various technologies that we offer. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. So with that, Dr. Larry Philippi, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Justin. I appreciate that. I think it is important, as the slides come up, that we follow up this right after the accessibility discussion, because it's important to remember that accommodations that students may have due to a disability are equally applicable to our online courses just as much as they are to our face-to-face courses. So, so this kind of dovetails into that. Let's see if we can get the slides. There we go. So I want to review with you just briefly the disability services here at Texas Tech. I know that most of you have come from other institutions, and all institutions have a process for this. Ours might be just a little bit different, but we're going to go over the process very quickly that Texas Tech uses when students who have approved disabilities do have accommodations, and how that process works for them to get it set up with you. Although our office is called Student Disability Services, I want to emphasize that we are very much here for you as a faculty resource, just as much as we are for students. So at any point, if you have a question about how accommodations work or a problem with the student, please contact our office, because that's what we are there for, is to support you as faculty members just as much as we're there to support our students. Just a quick rundown of the Disability Services office, what we're really there for. This is the office the students must go through in order to determine eligibility for their services and what accommodations they are approved for and what they qualify for. We do provide faculty training for ADA compliance issues throughout the year, so you're certainly welcome to take advantage of those. We do mostly through the TLPDC when we set those up, but we do provide academic counseling to our students with disabilities. And one of our main roles is that we're there to resolve issues between faculty and students when they have problems that arise with classroom accommodations. So that is really what we're there to kind of help facilitate. Just a quick rundown, these are all the different areas of disability that we work with. The last one, the autism spectrum disorders, we're getting a very large population of those students because of other programs on campus. So if you do run into issues with those type of students, which can be a challenge, that's what we're there to help facilitate as well. So we'll talk about the electronic LOA system first, and that might answer the question that just popped up. At Texas Tech, the letters of accommodation that are sent to faculty are all done electronically. They are sent through the TTU email system, and as an instructor, you need to make sure that you only accept letters of accommodation that are emailed to you by the student, of course, through the SDS office. In the past, we've had students hand faculty or instructors letters that they kind of wrote themselves, or addendums to their accommodation letters, that of other things that they would like to have. So you need to be careful to only accept the ones that come to you through the TTU email system. The email will have the student's name, it will have the course number and the section number, so you'll know that it is pertaining directly to your particular course. If you can't find an email that's sent to you, you can contact our office and we will be able to send you another copy of it. The letters of accommodation are sent electronically and typically within the first week of class to the instructor of record. We always encourage our students to do this the very first week of class because that's important. We know that they need to get those set up as quickly as possible. However, we also understand that we know that by law, they can submit it anytime during the regular semester up until the last full week of class. However, once they submit it, it only becomes effective from the date that it's reviewed by both the student and you as the instructor. So they may not send it till the middle of the semester, but if they do, once they visit with you about it and they are required to do that, then it becomes effective from that point moving forward. And remember that they do apply to all face-to-face, hybrid, and online courses. They're going to look a little bit different. Some of the accommodations are on the online courses, but they still apply. The other thing that's important to remember is if you are the instructor of record for a course with a lab that's taught by somebody else, you need to make sure that the instructor also gets a copy of that electronic LOA. You can either forward it to them, or you can request the student send one if you give them the email of the other instructor. But they can only be sent to TTU email addresses. This is important to remember because these are compliance issues. Should there be a complaint filed down the road about a student who maybe is indicating they didn't get something or the appropriate accommodations, we can only verify TTU email address interaction. So that's why it's important to only use TTU email addresses, when we're working with accommodations. When the letter of accommodation is sent to you, the student still must meet with you individually for the accommodations for them to become effective. So this interaction can be done virtually, by phone, by email. It doesn't have to be a face-to-face interaction, but the student must be the one to initiate it. You're welcome to reach out to them if you've received one and they have not contacted you. You can certainly contact the student if you want, but the responsibility of contacting you as the instructor to talk about what's on that letter of accommodation is up to the student. It's important to remember finally that all the accommodations on the letter of accommodation should be provided. So when you visit with the student about their letter of accommodation, if there's an accommodation that's not on the list and they're asking you for it, simply ask them to send you an updated letter of accommodation with the requested accommodation on it. Generally, you're going to hear that from a student that's wanting something they're probably not eligible to have. And so that's why it's important to only provide what's on that list. Likewise, if they don't want something that is on that accommodation letter, you need to ask them to send you a revised letter of accommodation that has only the accommodations that they need. We do this as a protection for you so that down the road, say there's a student that had note-taking services, for example, on their accommodation letter, and they tell you they didn't need it, but at the end of the semester, they're really struggling. Sometimes they've come back and said, well, I was supposed to be getting notes all semester and I wasn't, even though they told you they didn't need it. If it's on that letter of accommodation, that's still an issue. So if they want something that's on it, have them send you a new one with it on there. If they don't want something that is on it already, also have them send you a new one with only the ones on the accommodation letter that they're asking for. The last thing is to remember about the accommodation letters is they are not retroactive. And I think that's important to remember because, as I said, they do have the right to send it throughout the semester. We don't encourage that, obviously, but if they do have the right to do that. But if they do, it's important for them to understand, and we remind them of this, it's only effective from the date that you have met with them. They're not retroactive. So they're only going to start being applied from the date that they submit them moving forward. And then you want to review the LOA carefully and contact our office should you have any questions about how they should be provided. Let me look at these questions real quick. What about students who ask for accommodations related to preventing COVID exposure for face-to-face classes? There is a process in place right now. If a student, for the ones you will need to work with the Dean of Students office if it's a student that has been exposed to it, because there's different preparations in place for those. For this semester, one of the things that we're really seeing a lot of our students who are requesting accommodations to have alternative attendance or hybrid classes where they're attending remotely rather than face-to-face in order to not be exposed for health conditions. If they do have underlying health conditions, they will register with us. If they don't, if they just don't want to attend courses because they're afraid they're going to be exposed to COVID-19, that would be a Dean of Students issue that they will work with. So the other question on here, if the student does ask for note-taking services, do we provide notes as faculty or do we seek student volunteers? When you get your accommodation letter, there will be options. You have several options as an instructor on how to provide that accommodation. You can get student assistance, you can ask for volunteers. If you provide PowerPoints on a regular basis, you can make those available to them. That will suffice. if it's an online course and all this stuff is already on there, then it's built into the course really. So, and then the other question was for online activities, or I'm sorry, in-class activities for extra time. Again, remember that the extra time component is generally applied to a paper pen exam situation. It's not applied to, in general, it's not applied to outside assignments. So if it's a lab situation, it would kind of depend on what the activity is. It may be one of those we have to look at on an individual basis, but in general, they're expected to complete their lab assignments, whatever's going on in that particular period at the same time. The only time we might ask for extended time is if it's a written assignment and they're required to turn in something written in the very same class period that it's assigned, and they have to turn it in before they leave. But in general, the extra time piece only is going to apply to paper pen tasks, as we call it, or exams that are out there. All right, let me get through this and I'll try to go back and answer those questions. Remember, attendance is one thing that was asked a while ago. There is no accommodation that exists that allows a student to miss class simply because they have a disability. There may be some flare-ups of their disability throughout the semester where they may contact you, or we may contact you along with them to ask for some leniency for a very particular frame of time. But if they're going to be out for more than a week because of a medical emergency or something like that, then they would work with the Dean of Students office, who would also work with the Associate Academic Dean to determine if they're able to make up the work or not, depending on what it is. But just for them to say, well, I'm going to be out probably several days just because of my disability, there is an accommodation for that. We work with them individually to handle that, because class attendance is an essential function of the course. And so that's important to remember. It's important to remember confidentiality when you're regarding a student's disability. Remember, you can't share that with other faculty, staff, or parents without the student's written permission. You should also be careful not to casually share information about a student's disability or the need for accommodations with anyone else in your office area unless there is a need-to-know basis. So if you're working with another faculty member and you're trying to figure out the best way to set up an accommodation for a student, certainly it's appropriate there, but we want to be careful not to share information about a student unless there is a need-to-know basis. There is a mandatory syllabus statement that everyone needs to be aware of. This is the statement that is required to be in your course syllabus because it does contain legal information that needs to be in there for us to be compliant. Basically, the emphasis is that instructors are not allowed to provide accommodations to a student until the appropriate verification has been received. And it also has our contact information there. So that syllabus statement is the one that needs to be in your syllabus. A couple of other requirements for the syllabus just for ADA compliance. All your test dates and assignment due dates need to be in there on the first day. We remind our students that is an accommodation. That's why they don't get extended time for outside assignments or homework, is because the dates are built into the course. They know ahead of time when everything is due, and so they have to plan their time accordingly. If there are assignments without due dates, those can be subject to requests for extensions. So if at all possible, you need to have all of your due dates in there from day one so that it does require them to turn in their assignments with everyone else at the same time. Just a couple of other compliance tips. We need to make sure we never ask a student what their disability is. You only need to ask what assistance they need from the list of accommodations. Sometimes they're going to share that with you, and that's fine. The less information probably for you, the better, though. But we need to be careful not to ask them specifically what it is. You need to be careful not to provide a requested accommodation that isn't on their LOA, like we talked about earlier, unless it's something that you're willing to provide for the same student, for the same assistance for any student in the classroom. This generally, as we were talking about earlier about attendance, would be if during, say, like seasonal illnesses, if a student is out for a day or two, they bring you a note from the clinic that shows over in the clinic, student clinic, getting treated for strep throat or something like that. Certainly then you can consider letting them make up the work just like you would with any student that would bring you a note from the class, or from the clinic. So the key there is just, if it's something you would do for anybody, then you can certainly do it for them. I'm going to now try to answer any questions that might have come up. I'll go back and try to catch those. One of the issues that we're seeing right now is we're having students try to go into classrooms or into academic buildings without face coverings or a face mask. And they're saying that because of a health issue or a disability, they're exempt from wearing those, and that our office has approved that. There is no accommodation, again, that we would provide that exempts a student from wearing a mask anywhere in an academic building or a classroom. So if they're telling you that they have been approved for that, they're not being honest with you. If a student has a genuine physical health issue that does prevent them from wearing a mask for whatever reason, then our accommodation for them is that all of their services and their courses will be provided remotely. So they'll need to attend courses that are done hybrid, where they can log in and listen to the lecture, or done online. But we do not have an accommodation that lets them go into your classroom without any kind of a face covering. Our students with hearing impairments will be using face shields. We do have sign language interpreters that work through my office. They will also be in your class. If we have a student in your class that needs those, they will also be wearing clear plastic face shields because they do need to see the mouth of the person speaking. But they still must be wearing some kind of face covering. So that is important to remember, that they do have to be wearing a mask in your class. That is all. As far as the synchronous and asynchronous components, does everything need to be recorded and have closed captioning? If you have a student in your course that does need that, yes, absolutely it does. If not, we need to be trying to do that anyway, because if that changes, then you absolutely will have to do it, and we'll have to do it quickly. So we need to try for recording and putting stuff up. And Justin Louder, you can also speak to this as well, because that is an issue that we're seeing in many of the classes, especially if they're all going online.
To that question, in addition to what Dr. Philippi was talking about, we typically recommend that any asynchronous video recording is closed captioned and made accessible for students. For the synchronous portion, if you are going to record it, then for students to look at later on and review in time before tests and things like that, we would again recommend for all classes to make that accessible. As Dr. Philippi said, if you have a student with an accommodation, we have to do it. But we, based on some of the law and some of the challenges and citations that schools have received, the university's recommendation is that all asynchronous video is captioned for all learners. Yes.
And then one last question that popped up, are instructors able to teach without a mask? There's a policy for that. You'll need to check with the provost's office, and I believe it is if you're at least 8 feet away from the students, you can, or if there's a plastic shield in front of you, you can teach without the mask. But it needs to be under those two circumstances before you do. And then the required syllabus statement is on the Student Disability Services website under faculty resources. There are a lot of faculty resources on our website that you can take advantage of, and that is one of them, so you can locate it there. If you can't find it, please just email me directly at Student Disability Services, and then I can get that to you as well. I am now going to turn it over back to my colleague, Suzanne Tapp, who's our Executive Director of the TLPDC and the the wonderful individual who has put this all together for you today. And I will say before I turn it over to her that this is the name you need to put in your file right now, because this is the one resource that you absolutely need to take advantage of on a regular basis. So Suzanne, I'll give it back to you.
Thanks, Larry. That's very, very gracious. I want to say to you today, thank you. Thank you for joining us in our webinar. We recognize that we had a few bumps along the way today, and that's what happens sometimes, right? We all have some flexibility to show, so we appreciate that from you. You've asked great questions today. If you did not get your exact question asked, drop me an email. I'd love to direct you to someone, or I'd love to help you answer that question. That's very much what we want to do, is to be a service to you and help you get what you need. Some of you will be joining us virtually tomorrow. Some of you will be joining us face-to-face at the Texas Tech Museum. Either way, we're looking forward to seeing you. Our registration starts at 8 o'clock. You should have gotten an email that tells you how the large group is divided alphabetically, so you'll know what time to be there. Our session starts promptly at 9 o'clock, and we'll do our very best to get you out by 12:15. Again, if you have questions about tomorrow, questions about something you heard today, please drop me an email, and otherwise we will see you tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us.